A very, very good morning to everyone listening in. It is your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. Now you tune into the sunrise, and I'm super, super excited to be here to be a part of this show because we have a lot of fun and exciting things coming your way, okay? So make sure you stay tuned because I'll be here to keep you company all the way from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I will be informing you of the very latest, everything that happens in the United Kingdom, everything that happens all around the world. I will keep you informed about everything that is going on, so make sure you stay tuned because like I said, I'm super excited to be here on this Tuesday morning, and we have a lot of things coming your way, especially because this month is actually going to end tomorrow. And like I said, it's actually quite crazy because there's so many things that's actually happening right now, how fast this year has changed, how fast this year has passed by, how things have changed so much. So it's a lot of adjusting to do, it's a lot of things to get used to. And I also got a text that says hi. Well, hello, I'm super, super excited that you're here. I'm so excited that you can be here and listen in and be a part of the show as well. So, like I said, super excited to be here. But also, just a quick reminder that if you really like some of the content that we have, if you really like some of the things we talk about, make sure you follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because you can always keep yourself informed and updated about everything that is happening right here on Relax Radio if you follow our socials. Now, something else you can do is actually downloading our app from the Google Play Store and even the Apple App Store, because that way you can always make sure that you're a part of this conversation on Relax Radio any time of the day. Okay. Doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m., doesn't matter if it's 12 p.m. You can always just use the app, join into the conversation, and be a part of the conversation because we're always there, we're always talking, and we're super, super excited to bring you the latest of everything. Okay. And also, if you have any thoughts and your opinions that you would like to share with me, well, make sure you text me on 07852473473, because that way I can know your opinion, I can know your perspective, and I can share with everyone who's listening in as well. And that is something I would really, really love to do. But let's get into this health crisis that is currently happening in the United Kingdom, something that has been happening for a really, really long time, and something that the government is addressing right now. And that is, of course, I'm talking about obesity, because it is a huge problem right now. So obesity is what we will be talking about. So if you have any thoughts, if you have any input that you want to share with us on obesity, if especially if if you've been in that position but you're a survivor now and you're currently going through it, make sure you text me, because I would love to hear your story. I would love to share your experience, and obviously encourage everyone who's listening in as well, because that way we can all make sure that everyone is a part of this conversation, right? But let's actually get into the conversation right now, which is this obesity crisis we're having, and how the government is now taking steps to deal with it. So obviously, I decided we have to talk about it because you know the Kingdom actually decided to ban junk food advertising online and before 9 p.m. on TV from 2023. Now I know that's 2 years away, but given the fact that if you are going to take huge drastic steps to actually address one of the huge health crises in our country, well, then obviously we need to sort of make them aware in advance, right? Because like I said, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to all these companies that are advertising their products, there is a lot of revenue, there is a lot of money that is spent on it, especially if these companies solely specialize in fast food and junk food. So obviously then we actually do sort of have a responsibility to tell them beforehand, to make them aware of everything that's happening, so we can all make sure that we take the relevant steps to make sure that we reduce the obesity crisis, and we reduce the number of obese people right here in the United Kingdom. So I'm telling you this piece of news because the government is actually poised to announce a ban on junk food advertising online and before 9 p.m. on TV from 2023. And this is because Boris Johnson is looking to deliver on his pledge to tackle the UK's growing obesity crisis. And this is because obesity is one of the biggest health crises the country faces. And obesity is defined as, to simply put it, obesity is actually defined as it's actually defined as an abnormal or excessive fat accumulation that presents a risk to health. And a body mass index, which is a BMI over 30, is actually considered obese, right? So the reason we're talking about this is because there are so many obese people here in the United Kingdom, and it's not just adults; it's also children as well. So actually, it's very, very scary. It's very dangerous as well. The fact that there is this increasing number of children and adults who are obese, who are overweight, and who are struggling because of the various health conditions that come with obesity, right? And that's why it's very important for us to talk about this, because the accumulation of fat actually, in addition to the fact that it leads to obesity, there's also a whole other set of health complications that come along with it, right? Which is, things like the risk of a heart attack, different diseases like that. And the thing is, if we don't really address it right now, if we don't try to solve this obesity crisis that we're currently going through right now, then chances are it's actually going to get even more worse. It's actually going to get definitely worse for everyone who's living in the United Kingdom. And also the fact that we're not necessarily going to be able to tackle it when it gets even worse will also obviously be a thought that is currently there, right? So almost two-thirds, which is about 63% of adults in England, are actually overweight, and they're living with obesity. They're either overweight or they're living with obesity. And one in three children leave primary school overweight or obese, with obesity related illnesses costing the National Health Service 6 billion pounds a year, right? So that just goes to show how huge this health crisis is, and how we actually need to tackle it, because you understand that if one in three children actually leave primary school overweight or obese, then that is a huge statistic, right? Because basically, if you take all these children who are leaving school, it's just the fact that we're so exposed to all this junk food that's out there. We're so exposed to fast food, especially because our lives are so busy. When it comes to having children, when you have your own family, sometimes you're so busy because of work and all the multiple other things that you have to do, that sometimes you find it very hard to actually cook because you barely have time. And when things like that happen, you'd obviously buy some junk food, some fast food, because it's cheap and it's filling, right? So that's why it's called fast food, because you can it's very convenient to get it. It's fast and it doesn't really take a lot of time as well. So obviously, because of things like that, we tend to focus on buying things that are cheap, because look, it doesn't make sense. If you're so busy, it doesn't really make sense for you to spend exorbitant amounts on food all 7 days of the week, or even all 5 days of the week, because sometimes some people have the weekends off. But again, like I said, it's only some people. So if only some people have the weekends off, if only some people can actually afford really healthy, luxurious food, well, then it actually becomes a matter of whatever is cheap and whatever is easier to buy. And the answer to all of that is actually junk food, right? Because given the fact that in the market out there, healthy food is actually quite expensive, right? And that's why people actually opt to buy junk food, to buy fast food, because it's much cheaper and it's much convenient. It's much easier. So obviously, because of that, it has actually led to the increase in obese children, obese adults as well, right here in the United Kingdom. And like I said, one in three children actually leave primary school overweight or obese, with obesity related illnesses that actually cost the NHS 6 billion pounds a year. And if you look at it in terms of the National Health Service, that is also a lot of money. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't really address the fact that obesity is a huge crisis, that obesity is something that we really, really need to look at, it's even going to start costing us so much more. And we need to understand that in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of everything that is happening, it's not like the NHS actually has a lot of money to spend as well, right? Because we need to understand that a pandemic and obesity are not the only health conditions. There are so many other multiple health conditions which need to be addressed as well. So like I said again, if we were to actually deal with all of the sicknesses, all of the diseases that's currently there, well, the NHS would have to have an unlimited budget, simply because of the fact that there are so many health risks, there are so many health conditions, conditions out there as well, right? So the urgency of tackling obesity has been brought to the fore simply because of the evidence of the link to an increased risk from COVID-19. So another reason as to why they're paying attention to this problem is simply because of the fact that COVID-19 actually has increased the risk of, or rather, the obesity actually has been increased. The risk of obesity has been increased because of COVID-19, right? And like I said, COVID-19 actually, in fact, just makes all your pre-existing health conditions even more prominent, right? It just makes it so much more worse, and it makes it so much more especially if you're dealing with the after effects of after effects of COVID-19, especially given the fact that there is long COVID right now as well. For a lot of people in the United Kingdom, it's very, very hard for people to deal with multiple health conditions as well. So because of that, it's very, very important that the government and also everyone else who is involved when it comes to the health of people and whatnot, play this role in to make sure that they tackle the health crisis that everyone is facing when it comes to obesity as well. Because nearly 8% of critically ill patients with COVID-19 in intensive care units have been morbidly obese, compared with 2.9% of the general population. Now, it's very easy to just spit out numbers and say, oh, these are the percentages. But actually, if you think about it, if you take a step back and actually look at all of these statistics, you analyze all of these statistics, you will begin to understand that the number that is there is actually quite huge, and that it actually has a lot of health risks to everyone who is living in the United Kingdom. So that's what we're talking about. Now, make sure you stay tuned, because we'll be back after this small break. We'll be back to talk about obesity and everything that is related to obesity, but just make sure you stay tuned.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you got to start with saying, well, what do I want my net worth to be, so that there's a goal, and then work backwards. How do I get there? And if I can start with £50 or $50 a week, if I save that every week, and you can go online and use calculators online. I don't have to teach you the maths behind it, but you can say, okay, and if I get a 3% return and I put this away for how long will it take to reach my goal? And that's called just this basic cash flow projection calculations. And it's what we use in financial planning all the time. What we say to clients is we say, okay, what is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to go to? And we discuss that in a lot of detail and over most of the meeting. And then the rest of it is saying, okay, in your exact circumstances, with your risk profile, with how you feel about investments and pensions and taxes and where you are and who you work with, and your education level or your lack of education or how involved you want to be. There's a lot of variables that we take into account. And then we say, okay, here's a plan. You start like this, that's great. And then we review it all the time. And we say, okay, we need to increase it, we're on track, we're not, this is what is happening. Because remember, when you're dealing with assets, the valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's a struggle. Yeah. So there are strategies everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million, and they're different. Right? They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country, to be fair. Different countries have different tax laws, so with different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end. I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies and then you step up into different things.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense.
They can't accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Hey, it's your girl Sarah. Welcome back to the show now. Like I said, we're talking about obesity. We're talking about why it's such a huge problem in the United Kingdom and why the government actually needs to deal with it right now. Earlier, I was talking about how the government has actually taken certain steps to make sure that they deal with obesity, and they have taken certain steps to actually make sure that more people out there are healthier and they engage in much more healthier lifestyles, right? Like I said, you're hanging with me, Sarah. Now, if you really like some of the content that we talk about, if you really like some of the things we talk about as well, make sure you follow us on our socials, because that way you can actually keep yourself updated. You can make sure that you are up to date about everything we talk about, whatever we're going to be talking about on our shows as well. So make sure you go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Make sure to check out some of our TikTok content, because it's very fun and entertaining. And that's probably the best way to cheer yourself during this lockdown. Since we're all stuck at home, we we're getting bored, we're getting tired. Also, because of the fact that we have such a monotonous routine and things are getting very tough for us. So make sure you check out our TikTok page to keep yourself entertained as well. Now, while you're at it, make sure you download our app, which is available on both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. You can listen to us from your iOS device or your Android device, and you can always be a part of this show as well. So make sure you do that because I'm super, super excited that you could be a part of this show. Now, like I said earlier, we were talking about obesity, we were talking about the health impacts and everything, but let's actually focus a little bit on advertising and how much of money is spent in the United Kingdom for advertising, especially when it comes to products like McDonald's or other brands that specialize in fast food, right? So some of the new measures that will be taken when it comes to banning junk food will actually be some of the toughest marketing restrictions in the world, and this will heavily impact more than 600 million pounds that are spent by all brands in food advertising, both online and on TV annually. Right now, like I said earlier, when it came to COVID, because of like this whole pandemic that we had to face, it was so sudden, things changed for us so suddenly. We also found out that because of COVID-19, that it actually increased the risk of pre-existing conditions that actually a lot of us were going through. So what I mean when I say that is the fact that a lot of the conditions that we had, maybe it was heart diseases, maybe it was respiratory diseases, whatever it was in fact exacerbated by COVID-19. So when they realized that COVID-19 also had a risk on obesity, the government actually tried to take these steps to make sure that people were less obese and people were trying to have so much more healthier lifestyles, to be more fit and to be more active, right? And that is why the government actually decided to set out this comprehensive package of measures to actually help people take more control of their own lives, and their futures as well, by losing weight and getting active and adopting a healthier lifestyle. Because it's important, because it's very, very important that all the people out there are more active, are much more healthier, given the fact that we've all been stuck at home as well, right? And being stuck at home means, just especially if you're working from home, if you have been working from home for the past few months, it means that you've constantly been sitting on your chair and just staring into a computer screen, right? And earlier, sometime back, we actually spoke about the health effects that comes with sitting in front of a computer for long hours, how productivity isn't really at its best. So there are so many things that need to be considered when you're working from home, and that's why it's more important than ever before to actually focus on health, to actually focus on getting more fit and being more active, because we've all been stuck at home and we've all been sitting in the chair staring into our computers, regardless of whether it's our job, whether it's our education, or whether it's any other thing, right? And another step rather that the government has taken is the fact that they're not only going to be focusing primarily rather on childhood obesity, but they will also now come up with a strategy that focuses on empowering adults to lose their weight as well, right? So it's very important that we address everyone in society when we're trying to deal with obesity, because it doesn't just affect a certain group of individuals, but rather affects the entire society. So, like I said, 600 million pounds are actually spent every year on advertising online and TV annually. And basically, what the 9 p.m. pre-watershed ban will do is that it will actually result in a loss of revenue for TV broadcasters such as ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, and Sky. And this is about 200 million pounds a year in revenue. And this is because this watershed ban, or this banning of junk food being advertised on TV, is actually about products that are deemed to be high in fat, salt, and sugar, which is also commonly referred to as HFSS. So those are the kind of products that will be banned. Those are the kind of advertisements that will be banned as well. So the online ad ban would actually affect all paid for forms of digital marketing, from ads on Facebook to paid search results on Google, even text message promotions and paid activity on sites such as Instagram and Twitter. And it's actually estimated that 400 million pounds are spent on advertising food products annually. in the UK, especially when it comes to, being advertised online. Now, we need to understand that in this day and age, like I said, because we're stuck at home in the middle of a pandemic, we tend to spend a lot of time on our phones, right? Be it our phones, be it our laptop, whatever digital device we use, we're constantly, on social media. We're constantly on, be it Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is. So because we spend so much time on social media, we're constantly seeing these advertisements that are actually obviously targeted to, for us to order things, order from out, be it McDonald's or Burger King, whatever it is. It's actually targeted to make sure that we order from these sites. And especially because we spend so much of time ordering from out, because we spend so much of time browsing through our phones. And it's not just us, right? It's not just adults, it's children as well, because children nowadays actually have phones, something that, like, for example, most of us didn't get phones when we were so young, but the truth is children nowadays have phones when they're very young, and because of that they actually tend to spend a lot of time online. So that is why they're actually focusing on this online ad ban as well, from all forms of or rather focusing on all forms of digital marketing, and focusing on all social media apps as well. And like I said, because they spend 400 million pounds on advertising, that just goes to show that their advertising strategies are actually, based on making your subconscious want for whatever they're advertising, right? And you know how algorithms work as well, like, whenever you text your friend saying that you want a burger or whatnot, then immediately a burger would appear on your Instagram feed, right? Or whatever social media app you're using. So those things happen as well. So because of that, that is why the government is actually trying to take this step to actually make sure that they can deal with all of this that is being targeted towards people who are stuck at home, who are, tired and whatnot. So the tough rules, actually, which are expected to be announced on Thursday, will actually follow Boris Johnson changing his view on personal health decisions, especially after his own hospitalization with coronavirus last year. So we all know how that went down. And he was a bit of a skeptic when it came to that as well. So obviously, I guess it's more of development, something to look forward to, the fact that he is changing his views, he's changing his opinion, and is actually taking some steps to actually make sure that everyone else in the United Kingdom is protected as well. Now, the Prime Minister actually said that his own health issues contributed to his illness. And like I said, that research has found that our pre-existing conditions can actually be exacerbated by COVID-19. So because of that, it's very, very important for everyone to focus on their health, to everyone for everyone to actually make sure they're safe and they take the necessary precautions, because chances are, if you actually do get COVID, if you have any of those pre-existing conditions I mentioned, then things might get really bad for you, especially because the disease tends to make things much more worse for you. So just a reminder that even though that they're planning to lift the lockdown restrictions by the 19th of July, just make sure, even though you're stepping out, that you're taking the necessary precautions, that you're taking whatever precautions you need to be taking, especially things like wearing masks, socially distancing, and sanitizing your hands as well. Because you need to understand, just because the restrictions are eased, just because lockdown rules are eased, that doesn't mean that the pandemic has disappeared. It's still there, but we just need to take necessary precautions and make sure we keep everyone safe, including ourselves and the people we love as well. So getting back into this conversation about obesity, like I said, it's very easy to understand that people who are obese or people who are overweight actually have a greater risk of severe illness or death from COVID. So it's very, very important that we focus on these things when we're dealing with obesity. And also the fact that that the government actually needs to focus on ways in which you can help people, especially people who have gotten COVID, people with these pre-existing conditions who have gotten COVID and are surviving, and but they're still finding it hard to actually get on with their lives and whatnot. Now, last year, according to some research that was done by the government, because they were they were coming up with proposals to implement this ban from last year itself, it was estimated that children under 16 were actually exposed to 15 billion junk food ads online in 2019. And that was compared with 700 million 2 years earlier. So, all the way back in 2017, it was actually 700 million worth of junk food ads online. However, in 2019, it was 15 billion junk food ads online. So obviously that's a huge amount, and it's quite obvious to see how drastically it has increased, right? And that just goes to show that this also plays a huge role when it comes to obesity, when it comes to children always wanting fast food and whatnot. So obviously it means that we ourselves need to start taking these things seriously. We also need to start making sure that we look into our health so much more. But stay tuned, because I will be back to talk to you rather about this conversation of obesity, how advertising has affected it and everything. So make sure you stay tuned. But right now we're going to head into a small break.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're writing? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, and mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. That's very important, right? Because you want cars,
very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, if you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? And the company may still have value, it may still be doing quite a good thing.
Hey, it's your girl Sarah. Welcome back to the Sunrise. Now, I'm super excited to be here because I'll be keeping you company all the way until 9 a.m. So I have a lot of interesting content to talk about you with as well. So make sure you stay tuned because it's going to be super fun because we're having a conversation that is very, very important in this day and age. We're focusing on obesity, something, a huge crisis that the United Kingdom has been facing for a while now. And we're talking about how the government has taken certain steps to actually address the fact that or address the whole obesity crisis that is currently happening as well. Now it's important to actually keep in mind the fact that Boris Johnson is actually taking these steps because of his or not really only because of his personal experience, but also it has in fact been actually been initiated as a result of his hospitalization issue, something that he had to deal with last year when he got infected with COVID-19. So it's very, very important to keep that in mind as well, and to actually look into some of the proposals that they are planning to take, especially when it comes to all these advertisement banning, that the banning of certain advertisements that they're going to do if within the next few years. So like earlier we were actually talking about how much companies actually spend when it comes to advertising, and how children and even adults are exposed to certain ads that they see, how they are how they're part of this targeted audience when it comes to marketing certain things like junk food, fast food as well, right? Because that is this huge issue. There is a huge health crisis that is currently happening because people with obesity are not just adults, they're actually young children as well. So obviously that is something that we will be focusing on today, and that is what the conversation is about today. But also, if there are any other opinions, thoughts that you would like to share with us, make sure you text me on 07852 473 473, because we can be a part of, because you can be a part of this show. We would love to hear your opinion, because your opinion is very, very important to us, especially on Relax Radio, because Relax Radio is all about you. It's all about your opinion and your perspective as well. So, like I said, we'll get back into the conversation. But before I actually head into the conversation, just a quick reminder to follow us on our socials, which is the most easiest way to make sure you're connected to us. Make sure everything that is happening right here on Relax Radio as well, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So make sure you follow us on our social media platforms as well. But right now, let's actually get into the conversation about these restrictions and what kind of restrictions they're taking, whether they're actually going the full mile and taking all the restrictions they said that they will take last year, or whether things have changed. Right now, it's very important to understand that these new restrictions actually include a significant number of carve outs and exemptions, which mean that they will fall short of the total ban that was proposed last year. And the advertising industry and the broadcasting industry said that some of the restrictions that they have proposed last year were too indiscriminate and draconian. And so obviously, because of that and so many other issues as well, some of these restrictions have changed, and there have been a few exemptions from of these restrictions as well. So, for example, brand only advertising online and on TV will continue to be allowed. So, what this actually means is, if we take McDonald's, which is often associated with poor dietary habits, they will be actually allowed to advertise as long as the advertisements don't have HFSS products, right, which is high in fat, sugar, and salt content. So obviously they can advertise as much as they want, as long as they don't advertise products that fall under that category. So brands will also be allowed to continue to promote their products on their own websites and social media accounts. Again, that is not something that is not something that the government can actually stop, right? Because after all, these are their pages, these are their websites. So obviously they sort of have the right to do what the right to actually advertise whatever they want on their websites. So brands will actually also allowed to continue to promote these products. But the thing is, the government, when they introduced this whole definition or on what exactly was considered junk food or not, this actually led to the exemption of certain brands, certain things like avocados, Marmite, and cream would have also been blocked if they were to actually go with the definition that they set out last year. But however, those things have changed, and some of those things have actually been taken out as well. So because of that, some of the other products that will be included when it comes to junk food as well is will also have some non-traditional things, right? Things that you don't traditionally consider as junk food, such as honey, jam, or even zero sugar drinks and McDonald's nuggets, which are not nutritionally deemed as an HFSS product, but we still know that they have some health risks as well. So obviously, when it comes to things like sugar, when it comes to things like oil, there is a lot of harm that is caused by it, and there is in fact a lot of dangers for people who are obese, especially when they're consuming things that are high in sugar and in oil. So small and medium sized companies, which are basically companies with less than 200 employees, 250 employees rather, will actually continue to be allowed to advertise junk food products, right? So I don't really I don't really see the whole point of it, but I guess how you would actually view it is the fact that they're small companies. This is basically how they earn their money. So because it's a small company, that they're completely fine with them advertising junk food products. But in addition to this, business to business markets, actually, companies that do not target consumers but are part of the food industry supply chain will still be allowed to advertise HFSS items. So, junk food advertising will still be allowed through audio media, which is basically things like podcasts and radio, and there will actually be no restrictions for out of the home sector. And this includes things like billboards, pesticides, buses, and even in locations such as railway stations and airports. So even though online advertising is banned, even though digital advertising is banned, and even advertising on TV is banned, especially if it's on site, if it's on site advertising, which is basically advertising on railway stations, in buses, or even these billboards and poster sites, those things are completely fine. And even advertising through radio, through podcasts, things like that are completely fine as well. So I guess these are the steps they're trying to take. And I think the reason they're actually doing that is, I think the more you see of something, the more you're constantly seeing McDonald's advertisements, or Pizza Hut advertisements, whatever it is. That means the more your brain is subconsciously programmed to actually want those things, right? So I guess the less you see it, the less you'll actually be the less you'll actually want to get the product. So obviously, because of those things, it only makes sense as to why they would make sure that they deal with advertising when it comes to places like billboards, poster sites, whatever, places like that, basically. So obviously, sites like that are completely fine. And what also needs to be understood is that the list of products and the ban itself actually will be reviewed every few years. So every few years, they will actually review this ban. They will review and see whether these steps they have taken, whether these restrictions that they have proposed are actually working, these restrictions they've imposed, or rather implemented, are working, and whether it has actually made any change when it comes to the obesity crisis right here in the United Kingdom. Now let's also talk about some other measures they've taken, because there are quite a lot of other measures they've taken in addition to completely banning digital and TV advertisements, right? So one other huge measure they've taken is ending this buy one get one free promotions. Now, the new legislation will actually restrict the promotion of foods high in fat and sugar, such as buy one get one free offers, right? And we've seen this a lot, right? Especially when it comes to a lot of places that basically specialize in fast food. They always have this buy one get one free offer, and there will also be a ban on these items being placed in prominent locations in stores, such as at checkouts and entrances, and online as well. So you definitely can't have any of those buy one get one get one free promotions hereafter as well. And in the United Kingdom, actually, more in the United Kingdom, buying food products on promotion is something that we spend a lot of money on, especially in comparison to all the other European countries out there. People here in the United Kingdom actually spend so much more buying products that are on promotion than buying things that are actually healthy, which is basically like 1% of the healthy items that they purchase. Now, a survey in 2018 actually showed that 43% of all food and drink products that were located in prominent areas were for sugary foods and drinks, compared to just the 1% of healthy items that people actually bought. So this is why the government is taking these measures, especially given the fact that obesity is something that is very, very huge. It's affecting a lot of people out there, and it's very important that the government takes these steps right now, instead of waiting some more and taking steps later, because things are going to get so much more worse. So make sure you stay tuned, because I will be back to talk about obesity and other steps that the government has taken. So make sure you stay tuned, because we'll be heading into a small break right now, but I'll be back soon.
One of the easiest ways to increase your net worth is to ensure that you have higher cash flows. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to not buy things on hire purchase, not buy things over months and months because you can't afford them now, but you want it. It's kind of that delayed gratification. Rather than buy that couch, that car, that stereo, that computer, whatever item, and pay it off over 12, 24, 36 months at an interest rate, rather invest that money, make do with what you've got, and then after 12, 24, 36 months, take the money that you've now invested and buy that good. An asset could be anything that appreciates or reduces a tax bill. So it could still be a liability, but it reduces their tax bill. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities because that's out of our remit here. However, for our use or our purpose, what we are talking for the listeners here is, I would put this definition of an asset forward. An asset is anything that increases your income. Anything.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, if you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods. They're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends, and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK.
Hey, it's your girl Sarah right here on Sunrise. You're tuned into Relaks Radio, and we're talking about obesity, one of the biggest health crises right here in the United Kingdom. So that's what we're talking about, and I'm super, super excited to be here and educate you on everything that is happening in the United Kingdom as well, because obviously it is our role here at Relax Radio is always to make sure that you're informed, is always to make sure that you know what is happening right, everywhere in the United Kingdom, that you know everything that is happening, and also that you're informed about everything that's happening all around the world as well, because at Relax Radio we always focus on you. So if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions, messages that you would like to share with us, make sure you text me on 07852473473. The number is right there on that banner, so make sure you text us on that number as well, because I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your opinions, and I would also love to hear if you think there are any other things that need to be changed around here in the United Kingdom to actually make sure that the steps that are taken for the obesity crisis is much more effective. So let's actually talk about what we were talking about earlier. Now, we were talking about the other measures that the government had taken, especially things like the buy one, get one free offer, which a lot of people in the United Kingdom spent money on. And it was shown that people here in the United Kingdom actually spend so much more money on the buy one, get one free offers than actually spending money on healthy items that were there. So, going back into that now, shops will also be encouraged to actually promote healthier choices and to offer more discounts on food like fruit and vegetables. Which is something that is good, because it incentivizes people to buy more fresh produce, to also make sure that they buy healthier food as well. Right now, something else that they're doing is something called calorie labeling, which will actually require new laws, or new laws will actually require these large restaurants, cafes, and takeaways with more than 250 employees to add calorie labels to the food they sell. And research shows that eating out is becoming more and more common, especially among families, because 75% of people visiting a restaurant, fast food eatery, or getting a takeaway has actually risen compared to 69% all the way back in 2010. So it has risen, and there is a huge amount of families, huge amount of you know families, like I said, going out to all these restaurants and buying a lot of food from out. So because of the fact that this has increased, it is very, very important that the government is taking the steps to actually ensure and promote the fact that they eat healthier food. Now, there's often a lack of information when it comes to the calorie content of these items, and research suggests that people actually consume around 200 more calories a day if they eat from out compared to food prepared at home. So, obviously, the additional calories lead to obesity and lead to being overweight. So, it's very, very important that these restaurants now actually start labeling the calories that are there in their products, and because this measure will actually make sure that people are healthier and that they also are able to make informed choices. Now, being able to make informed choices is something that's very, very important, and that's why calorie labeling is also very important, especially when it comes to dealing or handling the obesity crisis. Now, there's something else that will be introduced as well called the alcohol calorie labeling, which is a new consultation which will be actually launched on plans to provide calorie labeling on alcohol. Now, alcohol consumption has been estimated to account for nearly 10% of the calorie intake of those who drink, with around 3.4 million adults consuming an additional day's worth of calories each week. So what that totals to is actually an additional 2 months of food each year. So that is what the alcohol intake equals to. But research has shown that majority of the public, which is about 80% of the public, is actually unaware of the calorie content of common drinks, and many typically underestimate the true content as well. So it's hoped that alcohol labeling could actually lead to the reduction in consumption and could eventually end up with the improvement of people's health. And another thing they'll obviously be doing is expanding the national health services, because weight management services will be expanded, so that many more people will actually get the support that they need to lose weight. Right now, sometime back we were talking how a lot of people get denied treatment because of the fact that they're fat, right? And not necessarily denied, but rather they would say that the problem to all of the conditions they have is simply because they're fat, right? And there is a lot of negative stigma, there is a lot of fat phobia around. So obviously, what they're trying to do is try to help all these people, is try to make sure that they're motivated and they're supported to actually make those correct decisions, or actually to make sure that they can make those decisions, and they can lose weight and make sure that they're not obese and overweight. So this will actually also include more self-care apps and online tools for people with obesity related conditions. And it will also accelerate the NHS's diabetes prevention program. Now, for example, general physicians will also be encouraged to actually prescribe exercise and more social activities to help people keep fit. So these are some of the additional steps that that the government is taking. And also something else they're doing is obviously getting NHS on both their program to actually make sure that they can make or they can lessen the effects of obesity, and also to make sure that they can keep everyone safe and fit. So obviously that's what they're doing, and it's very, very important that they're taking these steps now. It's very, very important that they're getting people on board, they're getting the National Health Service on board as well, to make sure that they can reduce the obesity, reduce the rate of obesity within the United Kingdom by, and also these other additional measures they introducing or implementing to make sure that people are much more safer and healthier. Now make sure you stay tuned, because I will be back in a few more minutes to talk to you about how the UK is actually set to ban zoos and safari parks from keeping elephants. Okay, now that is also something, it's actually quite an interesting conversation, because we'll be talking about zoos, we'll be talking about the mental health of animals, so we'll be talking about everything. So make sure you stay tuned, because I'll be back in a few more minutes.